Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Sub-Saharan Africa, Hamid El-Ghani Ali, a professor at the American University in Cairo, predicted that the protest movement would succeed in forcing the military to step down. He said there were two competing visions for Sudan's future. The vision of hate and division is led by the Janjaweed militias and military resisting to preserve the economic interests they enjoyed during Bashir's rule, while the vision of hope is led by professional associations and syndicates. They want a democratic, open Sudan with a strong developmental vision. Young Sudanese who had their whole lives ahead of them were gunned down in the streets by the militants of the RSF. This is from Thomas V. Linger. I take you back to Ouagadougou 2014, and I said we need to ask ourselves how many people can an incumbent shoot stone cold dead in such a situation? 100, which is where they're at, declared at the moment. 1,000, 10,000. This is another point. There is a threshold beyond which the incumbent can't go. Where that threshold lies will be discovered in the throes of the event. Remember the Darfur genocide with Saudi help. One of the killer commanders there is taking over Sudan. Trump administration officials may tweet about democracy, but ultimately it looks like decisions are being made by Trump buddies in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Dr. Mohammed Naji Al-Assam, the external sides that are supporting the military council will lose the Sudanese people for good. So look, it remains very fluid. I mean, it looks as if it's couldn't get nastier, but then things tend to get nastier. But ultimately, we know this is the moment that Sudan will be stepping into a future, and a brighter one. I can't see how the military can run the show, though they managed to do that in Egypt. We have to keep an eye on things. Interesting comments from Bosch. South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, and maybe Algeria are today the only countries that have the size to justify big manufacturing plants. The RTGS, which represents all mobile, electronic, and domestic card transactions, reached 9 against the dollar from 7 a week ago and 3 at the beginning of the year. I wrote about this in particular in October when they blew $1.3 billion priming the economy, which was money they didn't have. And I've also said there is a correlation between high inflation and revolutionary conditions. Zimbabwe is a classic example. I used that quote by Yuval Noah Harari. Money is accordingly a system of mutual trust, and not just any system of mutual trust. Money is the most universal and most efficient system of mutual trust ever devised. That mutual trust broke down in Zimbabwe. Angolan oil production was about 1.45 million barrels a day last month, after dropping to the lowest in at least 12 years. So that's a bit of a concern. Protesters carried placards reading "DPP out, Mutharika stole the election, who supplied the Tipex?" The National Executive Committee, Lek Gotla, agreed to expand the mandate of the South African Reserve Bank just beyond price stability to include growth and employment. This is Ace Magashule. Added that the ANC's executive committee wanted the government to constitute a task team to explore quantitative easing measures for developmental purposes. So that's the party line. Then you've got the central bank governor. Where does the central bank get the money? We'll have to print it for state companies. It will not take long for inflation to really tick up. The South African version of modern monetary theory goes something like the central bank can just take over the debts of the state-owned enterprises and make it disappear, and then we're happy, kind of thing. Fortunately, there are heads in the Treasury, so that doesn't come up, but that doesn't stop the fringe from talking about it. Basically, the Rand gets Ace Magashuled, and we've got a close to 15. Let's see how we behave, but it's very, very jittery. The finance minister, Tito Mboweni, he's denying plans to change the central bank mandate. Last year I was writing about I was keen to buy the China EM negative feedback contagion loop, which means shorting the ZAR. And now we got this adding to the short position. This is a chart from EGM Securities. I haven't checked where we are of late, but we got just shy of 15. South African All Shares doing quite well. That's up 8.22%. That's all about the price of gold. Egyptian pound, 16.7765. Egyptian EGX 30 plus 5.77% year to date. Nigeria All Share down 1.59% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange down 3.44% year to date.